Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We've got AJ, we've got Biggie, we've got Rudo coming to you live on a Tuesday as Game 3 of the Cup Final got played the other night where Florida essentially blew out Edmonton. We'll get into that game in a second. I did want to start off with news coming from that game as, there were some interviews that got done with Gary Bettman during it. I don't know that there's anything super crazy that came out of that. Bettman did completely dismiss the idea that state tax was a significant factor in getting players signed and things like that. He also indicated that, one of the big draws for some players could be practice facilities. It's no secret that the Avs practice facilities are, let's call it, in the lower half of the league. I don't know. I'm taking anything Bettman says with a grain of salt, of course. I'm curious what you guys think on the matter. We've kind of talked about the state tax thing already. You were a player. What were some of the factors for you maybe you didn't have quite as many suitors as some of the tip-top players in the world, but did practice facilities matter to you?
Whoa. How do you know they weren't lined up for me? AJ knows. No, I'm kidding. Here's my takes on it. I think to some players, things matter, you know what I mean? But it seems like every year, every other year, it's like a fashion thing, you know what I mean? Like this year, it's like the practice facility, you know what I mean? The problem is the luxury tax, even though we heard about it like last year, but they just seem to come and go. And I totally agree with Commissioner Bettman, to be honest with you, because as a player, you're going to go where there's a good team, good coach, good players, and a good place to live in your mind. If you're from the South and I don't know, you like the sun, you like Florida, great. There's a lot of people from Manitoba that would love to go home and play in Manitoba. I'm just saying, so everybody's tastes are different. Um, I think you're hearing the practice facilities a little bit more lately because you heard it from Rick Tocchet when he was being interviewed by all those teams to give him the head coaching job. And one of the reasons he turned down Vancouver, apparently on whatever one of the shows, it said, he was kind of getting tired of that. They have no practice facility. You know what I mean? So that was one of the reasons. And all of a sudden it just picks up, right? You know what I mean? Do I think it matters? Yeah, I mean, I've lived through it the whole time. My NHL life, from chefs in the locker rooms. I remember the first team that got a shot. I think Vancouver was one of them. And you're like, holy cow, that's sick. You know what I mean? Like, that's unreal. And, that it really helped them that year. They were the only one to land free agents. I don't know. Maybe it did. I have no idea. I don't remember being like, wow, all of a sudden people went to Vancouver because they got a chef. You know what I mean? It was more, at the end of the day, it's good values. You treat people right. And I think Commissioner touched on it too. Good ownership. So I think in Denver you got everything. And again, the practice facility, it will be there one day. And it's always been a little bit like that with, and I'm not, and I love the people at South Suburban. You guys know that. It's great. It's family for me, those people. And it's not their fault. It's not the Avalanche. I mean, this is, they only have so much space to work with. I mean, that's what they have there. But it's not so much practice facility. It's more tools that are at your fingertips, you know what I mean? From recovery and, those rooms, and you need room. You know what I mean? You need space, for those things. And that's kind of where it falls short a little bit, on the Avalanche side of things. So I don't know. I don't make it a big deal with the state tax. For me, is if you run your organization well, you have good people, good staff, good values, and people will come. And so I tend to agree with Commissioner Bettman.
I, I've been lucky enough to go to the last couple of rookie face-offs in LA and Vegas. AJ, you've been to even more practice facilities than that for things like the rookie face-off. And look, I'm with you, E. The guys that work at South Suburban, keep them all of the staff are awesome. Cannot recommend them enough. Put them in a real building, man. It's nearly incomparable what the Avs have to some of these new facilities we've seen in LA and Vegas and Anaheim. You gotta do something there if you're Colorado.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean the Eric, when we hung out in the at the Anaheim face-off a handful of years ago now, the Martin Kaut days. Um, that was I mean, that was a brand new facility, but 3 sheets, pro locker rooms, like it was completely incomparable to what to what the Avalanche have, where you're like, look, when this facility was built, I'm sure it was, fine for an NHL to house an NHL team, but so much has changed in 30 years, their facility hasn't. And we keep hearing, oh, the Cronkies are a part of this gigantic redevelopment of the ball arena like area, and they own a bunch of that land, and they have this idea of we're going to do this, this, and that, but it's like that plan doesn't even like that development doesn't even finish until like
Yeah,
2040 at the earliest.
cool. Cale Makar's career is over when that thing is
Right,
long before that
right.
thing is done. Like,
It's a legitimate question. Will Cale Makar retire before the Avalanche get a new practice facility? It's not even being hyperbolic because this has just been ongoing. They've got to do something. I've talked to a couple of players over the years about this, and no player ever wants to speed bag the organization that's paying them and providing their living. But like, it is something that has come up. It's not players' favorite part of being in the Avs organization. Eric, you said that the Avs have everything, and I think outside of the practice facility, I would agree with you. They've got ownership that spends money. They've got smart people running the organization. They're aggressive. They're competitive. They care about it. They do a lot of things really really well to treat current players the right way. But putting them up in that practice facility remains their bugaboo. But I mean, how important is it?
sure.
As Eric said, it all matters. But when you're building 100%, you put it into like a pie chart, it's like, is it like 10% even practice facility? It would have to be like awful for it, I think, it to even be that much. Things like school system and cost of living and all the different things that will go into it. It all
And
matters.
Denver's a great place to live, for the record, especially for
Yeah,
people like hockey players that can afford to live anywhere in town.
right. They're looking at cost of living, going, oh, I can
It's fine.
afford one of the
Yeah.
really nice like condos in downtown, where a bunch of the players have lived over the years. Yeah, um, it's very different. And somebody in chat asking about the Nuggets practice facility. Theirs was like state of the art when they built it inside Ball Arena back in the day. Now it might
It's
be
got
30 of
issues.
30.
Yeah.
Um, I've talked to the Nuggets guys over the years, and they've said that players don't like that one either. So this is the Cronkies are waiting to like do this the right way, right? Like they're like, hey, we don't want to just throw something up and then 15 years later be back in the same position. That makes sense. They're real estate guys. Like, I understand where they're coming from, but we are way, way down the road of this is bad. It was bad in 2009 when they drafted Duchesne. I mean, it's just that guy's good. That guy will definitely retire before the Avs get a new facility. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like it's been an ongoing thing. They've done so much to revamp the organization, um, just from a pro player perspective. But that's the one area that
Yeah.
you need better.
Nitpicking a little bit for sure. I think there's a lot of things it's hard to argue the Avs haven't done well. Like you were kind of alluding to, AJ. Look, if a player, not all players, everyone's different, but there are a lot of players that if they believe they could come to Colorado and win a Stanley Cup, they'd practice in a shack. They don't care. They're trying to win the thing.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Yep.
Don't overread into it with what Bettman said, but I do think if you're looking to improve as an organization, the practice facility should be pretty high on the list for the Avs. I think that's fair to say. As we flip over to the two teams in the Cup Final, Florida takes a 2-1 series lead, kind of blow out Edmonton in Game 3. And the rough stuff comes out. I don't call it what you will. Look, Florida is good at this. Florida knows what they're doing when it comes to getting under team skin, when it comes to walking that line of physicality and whatever. Maybe they get calls, however you want to put it, fine. I want to get your thoughts first on this because I know you're the big guy about, hey, look, you don't have to go out there and kill anybody, but you do need to stand up for yourself. You do need to at least send a message of I'm not going to be bullied here. The game the other night devolved into hockey nonsense, as is one to happen when a team gets blown out in the Cup Finals. Did Edmonton send a message back, or is Florida sitting there going, this worked. We got under their skin, and this is exactly what we wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I know you'll go in your pause in a few minutes, but obviously I'll give it to AJ after. But here's my take on it. Yeah, you're right. Florida's laughing because they're like, we got them right where we want them. We got them frustrated right now. This is our game. But when you look at a hockey game, there's a way, and I always say, play hard between the whistles, right? Play hard between the whistles. If your forte is after the whistle, some guys, that is their forte. They're sharp, they're witty, they're quick. They'll say a line that's going to get the other guy mad, and then they'll slash him, and you know what I mean? Like, and then you get a power play. I'm all for that, you know what I mean? But don't be stupid after the whistles. It doesn't really do anything. But you do have to uh, play hard when it matters. For me, yesterday, the Edmonton Oilers, when the puck dropped, they weren't ready. It's not the coach's fault. It's just I listened to a friend of the show, Don Granado, this morning on the NHL Network on the radio there, and Don said something as a coach that you can't prepare for is all the other teams going to come out, and a lot of times, like, you can't dictate what's going to happen in those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Sometimes it's a puck in the stands. You give the other team a power play. Sometimes it's, I don't know, you lost the draw, then you're chasing the game, and But sometimes, like the Florida Panthers yesterday, they meant business right off the bat, and Edmonton got caught off guard. And I think what you're seeing at the end of the game there, call it whatever, shenanigans, whatever it is. Listen, when you're sitting there, I'm going to put my helmet of a player on. You're sitting there. It's a contact sport. It's a physical sport. You have sticks, and I'm not saying you use that as weapons. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there'll be some incidents. I mean, you don't mean to, unless you're throwing water on the other bench. Like Wallman, the gritty man there. But you mean to do that. But there's stuff that happens in a game that I'll give it 10 seconds. You go to your thing. But all I'm saying is you. You're frustrated, and that's what you saw yesterday, and then you have regrets. So you're regretful that you weren't sharp. You're regretful that now you're down 2-1, and those things happen. They used to happen all the time in my time. I'm not saying they're fun. I'm just saying that sometimes, like last night, you just can't control it. They just happen. You know what I mean? And it is what it is. And we'll keep it up after the pause.
Yeah, I want to hear more thoughts from you on this, but we do
Yeah.
need to take our first break here. So let's make sure we're hitting that, as we are brought to you by the folks over at First Bank. If you're looking for banking that plays at your pace, whether you're tailgating, grabbing halftime snacks, or catching the game from the couch, First Bank is in your corner. With their secure, easy-to-use mobile banking app, you can check your balance, split the tab for stadium nachos, and stay on top of your money anytime, anywhere. It's like having a financial MVP in your pocket. And here's the play that pays. You could get $300 when you open a new First Bank checking account. Use it to score tickets to the Nuggets, the Avs, or the Rockies. You could get like a month of tickets. Whatever keeps you in your game day and keeps it going strong. Get with First Bank. First Bank makes managing your money feel like a win. No games, just solid tools to help you stay in control right from your phone. If you're ready to take your banking game to the next level, head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus. Of course, certain restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. And once you've taken care of your money with First Bank, make sure you're also taking care of your smell. Edmonton the other night, a little stinky on the ice. They didn't use Mando. Go get with Mando today. They want to make sure all the colorful parts of men's bodies, such as pits, belly buttons, balls, butt cracks, grundles, and more, are smelling right. They have a bunch of different scents, including bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. And they just make sure you're taking care of your body when it comes to male hygiene. You can jump in with them today. They have a bunch of different amazing products, but their best product to go with is their starter pack. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant and a cream tube deodorant, as well as 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash or deodorant wipes. And all of that comes with free shipping when you use the DNVR code. It's a special offer for our listeners. Not only free shipping, $5 off that starter pack, which equates to 40% off your starter pack with our exclusive DNVR code. Use the DNVR code at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please let them know we sent you over there. Use the DNVR code. Get your percentage off. Get us out there. Let us know. Let them know even that you used us. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Look, I do think it's a fine line between, hey, I need to stand up for myself. Sure. Guys like Sam Bennett are absolutely getting their extra whacks in. But then you also see someone like Jake Wellman just straight up throwing sucker punches at people, two-handing guys in the back of the knee and all this junk. At a certain point, you start to look like a kid throwing a temper tantrum more than a guy standing up for himself.
And I'll tell you why. Yeah, for me, I've been in teams. I've been on teams myself. Like, guys, we don't fight them. We got them where we want them. We don't. There's no need to fight them. Why would you fight if you're Sam Bennett? Why would you fight? Whoever was chasing him yesterday, was it Kane? I don't remember. Like, why would you fight him? You're up 5-1. You're not gonna. Why you break your hand? Like, there's no need for you. You always say if you're gonna fight, you got to fight on your terms. You got to fight on your own terms. If you fight on somebody else's terms, Derek Morris. God, I'm still mad at Derek for fighting Ling that night. 8-0 game against Columbus and broke his orbital. I'm just saying, right? But you want to show you're tough. And Mo was tough and he was ballsy. But what I'm saying is, why would you fight them last night? So, and then it got Edmonton frustrated. And then you got Wallman, guys like that. I get that. He got fined twice, right? He got fined for whatever, spraying water. Then he got fined for sucker punching Matthew Tkachuk. But at the end of the day, you're doing that because no one's going to fight you. No one's going to fight you. You know they're not going to fight you. So then all of a sudden you're a little tougher, right? You know what I mean? And I get it. I mean, listen, I've been in those shoes. I get it. But I mean, is it a little temper tantrumish? Absolutely. But you know what? You're in the Stanley Cup Finals. You saw in that documentary last year how hard it hurt, like McDavid. Remember, like you were like, oh, you fell for him. So right now you're down 2 games. You only have 2 more freaking, what do you call that? Free cards, right? You're done. It's over. So then you have regrets, and I'm sure that if you're guys like, have you ever thought about like Stuart Skinner? How much pressure I don't care what he says or what people are going to say. Connor McDavid is one of the greatest players in the history of the planet, and there's pressure for him to win the Stanley Cup, right? And he's doing everything every year. And what if you're the goalie that just kind of not up to snuff for him? Right? I'm just saying, you know how much pressure that is? There's a lot of pressure for those guys. So I don't know. What you saw last night was temper tantrum. And it happens. Am I against it? No, you guys know what I think about that. Whatever. If you're gonna go down with a fight. But there's a way to not look like a clown either. You know what I mean? And maybe there was some activity that you look like a little clown. You know what I mean? Like, but then again, the Panthers are doing it, but the Panthers are doing it when it's 0-0, 1-1. You don't need to do that when it's 5-1. It's too late. So that's where now you're doing it because you're frustrated. But again, AJ Greer did steal Wallman's glove and does throw it in you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is, but it's sneaky and, it is what it is and he doesn't look as bad. You can say, I don't know. I don't know whose glove that was. I'm colorblind. I don't know it's an orange glove. You know, I threw it on my
I,
bench, right? I'm just saying, there's a way to do it without being BS, and then there's a way to do it where they looked a little clownish yesterday.
well, I mean, I think there's a couple of different angles here, and I'm the softest guy here. I've been in one fight in my life, so I'll let AJ answer too. But when you look at some of these rats or whatever you want to call them out there, yeah, is Brad Marchand a rat? Absolutely. He also has a game-winning goal in this series. You got to be able to produce on the ice too, is where I'd sit with it. But AJ, I'm curious your thoughts on it.
Uh, I think it's more of a reflection of whatever that team is, right? Like Edmonton is getting embarrassed last night. Trent Frederick goes chasing Sam Bennett around, and he's whacking at him and breaks his stick over him. Like, and that's why they got Trent Frederick. That's why he's valued around the league. That was one of the reasons that we talked about why he would have been a good fit in Colorado, is because he kind of he wants that smoke all the time, right? And Florida just has a team full of those guys, which is what we've talked about on this pod throughout this postseason. Is uh, Florida wants to live on that edge all the time. Sometimes it spills over, but Edmonton doesn't. It's not really Edmonton's MO, which is why you see Jake Wallman flying off the handle, because he can't control it. He doesn't live that life. He's not about that. And once you see him, he's in uncharted territory there, getting crazy like that. And I think Edmonton is a team, it's just not really who they are. And I think the meaning of it is used by all of us to tell whatever story we want to tell. Either, oh well, Edmonton's punching back. Look at them. They at least care. They're fighting back. They're gonna win game four now because of this. Or, oh, they're completely out of control and they're melting down and Florida is in their head and they're gonna, whatever story you want to tell, you can tell when something like this goes down. And so for me, I'm just like, I'm not in that locker room. I don't really know. I don't really know what it's going to translate into, and I've never been a big believer in series momentum, especially when you have as much time off in between games as these guys do. Like, they're all going to wake up tomorrow. They might still be a little bit heated. Then they're off again tomorrow. And then they don't play again until the next night. Like, there's a lot of time. Everybody will cool down. Everybody will get right back into, we're trying to win a Stanley Cup here. Not a line brawl. It'll whatever. It's fine. It's in the past. So for me, I think that it's a bad look for the sport in general, but I understand that I'm a soft-hearted lib. That's just who I am, man. And I think that it's embarrassing for the game on its biggest stage to devolve into chaos like that. When USA Canada did it at Four Nations, there was something into it. It was at the beginning of a game. It was,
0-0.
we are ready to fight for this.
Hmm.
You're getting the hell kicked out of you. This hasn't been it's not a competitive game. It wasn't competitive at that point. I mean, at that
Yeah.
at that point, what are you doing? Are you saving face like that? And I think that's an important distinction. You do it early on. Both teams want to get into it, and they're like, hey, let's rev this engine up. Fine. But to do it at the end of the game, to me, that's soft baby stuff, and I'm less about that. I don't have tons of respect for that. If the Avs did that, I would say the exact same thing. It's not for me.
Yeah.
It's
And
it's
and I'll
Detroit
add
waiting
to
to
it.
do it at home, right? Like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Detroit waiting
No,
to
but
do it at home. Exactly.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, they won the Stanley Cup that night, so let's not go back. But that's when this won that March night they won the cup. But it's okay because what it does is I agree with your point there, AJ. I agree. I don't think it's being soft what you're saying. I'm saying that I don't think it's planned last night. I think it's the Stanley Cup Finals, and you just have regrets that you didn't really show up. And I think that they don't usually do it. Obviously, it hasn't been like that. Edmonton hasn't been that type of. Kane is always kind of a whatever, that type of guy anyway, but because he is tough and he won't back down from anyone. But I think sometimes he can be, not the smartest when it comes to that. But um, you're right, because at some point I'm going to compare it to one thing. Compare it to our brawls back then with the Red Wings. And go to that documentary. I don't remember what it's called, but the unbelievable documentary, Red Wings Avalanche rivalry. Just to go back to one line from Patty when he's like, at some point after a couple years, he goes, I started to realize, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
how dumb are we? Let's go win games, right? And let's go win games. Let's get back to what we're trying to do, which is to win the Stanley Cup and not be frustrated and wrestlers or fight or boxers or whatever. So that's kind of like that. Maybe they got their stuff out of their way last night. And I agree. It's not like you never want to lay down and and surrender. So you have that mentality sometimes for players, and but I agree. That's not the right way to do it. For me, at 0-0, like Four Nations, yeah, awesome, great. You're trying to, but when it's I was always like that, and I trust me, I didn't like it when I was playing because who do you think's going out there when it's 6-0 and you're up? Hey, enough, Sakic or Forsberg, it's me. So yeah, I didn't like those types of nights. I got to be honest with you. You're like, oh, are you kidding me? Robert, Basil McRae, friggin' the list goes on. You're like, oh God, I'm like a filet mignon. You know what I mean? Like, they want to pounce on me, you know? So anyway, yeah, so I get it.
Imagine you learn how to defend yourself real quick in those situations.
Oof.
I do want to pivot to another, I don't know if I'd call this one a heated topic of conversation, but look, I talked with you the other day about it. There are some positives to how drawn out this Cup final has been, right? Especially with the long travel. These teams have gotten a little bit more rest. Some people believe that brings a higher quality level to the hockey, that they can be 100% of themselves with a couple of extra days off. The flip side of this is it's what, June 10th? And we've played 3 games in this Cup final across the conference finals ended on May 29th. So it's been nearly 2 weeks and we've played 3 games of hockey. And I get it. You want the best hockey possible. The first 2 games are great. This third game, maybe not quite as good, but in some ways it's hard to keep the Cup finals on the top of the mind, especially for more casual fans when the games just aren't happening that often. It gets pushed to the back. I have a theory, and I don't think it's a good theory, and I think most hockey fans, including myself, would probably hate this. But if you wanted to avoid these schedule conflicts, if you wanted to avoid this ridiculous travel in an East versus West final, would the NHL ever consider a neutral site Cup finals?
No. Don't do it.
Okay.
I'll jump in. I'm going to give you my answer. I just know how the league thinks, and I agree with them. I think the NHL does one thing, even though sometimes we hear otherwise, is they care and they want that relationship with the fans. And I think they respect the fans. They spend their hard earned, watch out for the French accent here, hard earned dollars. Uh, and I think that you're doing that, you're going neutral site, then it's hard for your community, like the restaurants around there, the businesses, what I mean, they benefit from that. And it just makes a big difference to get all that fan base going down there. Even on the away games, you're packing the buildings, and I think the NHL will never go for that. But it's a great thought, like you're saying. It's a great idea. It's not stupid. That's not your stupidest idea. That's a
I
great
don't know
one
that
by
I
you.
agree, but sure.
No, but it is a great idea. No, it is. It would be unbelievable. Kind of like the Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. But I just feel that it's such a grinding season for everyone involved, including the fans and media. I think it's nice to get it home. You know what I mean? Like when you're there with those 2 teams.
Look, I'll play devil's advocate and I'll defend it a little bit. But before I do, let me say, if you've ever been in a building for an NHL playoff game, why on earth would you change that? Like, the atmosphere for a
Exactly.
home Cup finals game is ridiculous. Like, you'd be a fool to move away from that. With that being said, my defense of it is, look, it solves a lot of the logistical issues, like I already mentioned, but also it prevents some of the stupid stuff. Like, we saw how bad Dallas's ice was in the playoffs this year. Truly, truly awful ice for a number of their games. All of a sudden, if you're playing these games in colder weather climates, Is that another avenue for the NHL to get the best version of hockey out of these teams, out of these games, instead of having to deal with the elements or deal with these external factors that are reducing the quality of the hockey on the ice? Maybe there's something there. You brought up the Super Bowl. Yeah, if the Cup Finals was a best of one, I think it would make a lot of sense. It's tough. A best of 7 is tough to do on a neutral site for sure. So
It would be
I don't
great
know.
on your body. I'll tell you that. That'd be great on your body. You don't have to make that flight back and forth, back and forth. Like, oh my God, it kills your body. But it is what it is.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
That's why it's
part of the
grueling.
deal. All right, we do have to pay a few more bills here before we continue on, so let's make sure we're doing that, and then we can, get into more free agency talk. As one of our sponsors today is, of course, Empire Today. Make sure when you're building a ice rink, you got to have a good sheet of ice. If you want a sheet of ice in your house, honestly, Empire Today could probably do that, but don't do that. That'd be weird. Go get real floors with Empire Today. Of course, you can go over to empiretoday.com for any additional info, but they only carry the best products, whether it's hardwood, whether it's tile, whether it's carpet. They've got you covered, and they have a bunch of different ways that you can figure out what you want, whether that's going online and looking at products, measuring out your room and seeing what it looks like in that space. You can get a free in-home estimate from them, although they will bring in swatches of flooring. You can see what it looks like in your space with your furniture. And of course, you can always go in store and look at what they have to offer. So make sure you're getting with Empire Today. You can schedule that free in-home estimate right now because some things are just better at home. And DNVR listeners can receive a $350 discount when you use the DNVR promo code to get your new floors. Yes, that's right, a $350 discount with code DNVR. Get with Empire Today and get in with the flooring. Of course, restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DNVR for full details, or you can always call 1-800-588-2300. Empire. Once you've got your new floors set up, you probably deserve a reward. And that's where Raising Cane's comes in. Whether you're sitting at home on your new floors or heading out on your next summer road trip, ordering at raisingcanes.com or on the Cane's mobile app is the way to satisfy your chicken finger fix in a snap. At Raising Cane's, every chicken finger is hand battered and cooked to order. Every cut fry is crispy and perfectly salted, and every piece of Texas toast is buttered to perfection. Of course, all of this made even better by being able to dip it in the Cane sauce that is made every day in restaurant, ready to be dipped in. If you're hungry yet, get your order today at Cane's and keep the road trip going. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Any final thoughts on the Cup Finals before we move on? No. All right, cool. Let's move into free agency here, and I want to talk about a couple of the top free agents and what we think might happen, where we think they might end up. But obviously, the big one is Mitch Marner. We've talked about him a little bit. Obviously, not realistic for the Colorado Avalanche to end up with someone like him. But it's been an interesting conversation as a number of things have been swirling about where he potentially might go. It sure doesn't seem like he's staying in Toronto at all at this point. So, one, where do you guys think Marner ends up? And two, maybe this is for a little bit later in the show, but we can have the conversation about Marner using his no trade clause to veto some potential moves in the season and what that means for him as a UFA.
I'll give you the floor, buddy.
No, you man.
What'd you say?
Let's start with
Is that all
this.
you, man?
Since neither of you want to start, how many teams can even afford Mitch Marner this offseason?
Well, that's the thing.
A lot of bad ones.
Yeah, that's the thing. People are like, oh my God, everybody, listen, there's 32 teams thinks he's a good player. Absolutely, yes. Do 32 teams think they can win with him? No, I would tell you that it wouldn't be 32 for 32. Now when you get into those prices, yeah, there's what is there, 5, 6 teams that could make it happen, unless you do major reconstruction, and sometimes you have to do that. And again, would you do that? I don't know. I wouldn't do it. But yeah, Teams, and it's a known fact that Carolina was going hard after him, and in that three-way trade there, and it's a known fact that Vegas, because of somebody said in chat, Peter Angelo's LTIR, so they can go after that, and we all know that every year they do it. You know, what I mean, that they make it work somehow, and they do it, and they go after the big fish, and I would say he's the big fish, right? Whether you like him or not, he is the big fish. So, now I'm going to throw a little curveball in this conversation, and and all I hear is people pushing for Sam Bennett at 10 million bucks, and I'm not saying you should pay Sam Bennett less or more. My point is though is I understand Mitch Marner like is a good player. I'm the first one to say it. Special teams, good player. The analytics are there. Everything is great. But at the end of the day, you know, why are we talking today about this and not talking about the Avalanche? Because the Avalanche didn't win when it counted, which is in the spring, which is in the second season, which is the real season, which is the playoff seasons. And when I hear people saying like, and again, I'm not saying it's not fair. Oh, well, you shouldn't be paying, Sam Bennett this and this and that much. But why would you pay Mitch Marner 14 million bucks and he can't move on any rounds where Sam Bennett's always delivered his whole life in the playoffs, and that's where it matters. That's where your legacy's built. That's where everything is built, and that's where I understand 82 games you have to live with Sam Bennett. Is Sam Bennett going to get more than 50 points next year? Probably not. You know, but at the end of the day, Claude Lemieux was the same way, and I think the Quebec Nordiques. And again, I'll give my dad some flowers there. They had a bunch of players. They had a bunch of Mitch Marners, and then they're like, "How do we win? How do we win? We have to have the right ingredients." And then they got rid of, I'm going to give one example, Hall of Fame player, outstanding player, Matt Sundin, number one overall pick. And you're going to go and construct your roster the way where you think you're going to win. And in that deal, ultimately, of course there was more parts to it, but you're getting with Claude Lemieux. Is Claude Lemieux better than Matt Sundin? No, I think everybody would call me a moron if I said that. But Claude Lemieux's got what, 5 cups?
Couple
And
Conn
Claude
Smythe
Lemieux
in
always
there too.
performed. Yeah, he's done it every year in the playoffs, and that's when it matters. And that's why I say, and I'm not saying I would give 10 million to Sam Bennett. That's not what I'm saying. But so when I hear people like, "Are you kidding me?" But you're gonna give 14 to Mitch Marner, and Mitch Marner's a good player too. That's not what I'm saying. But when do you win in the playoffs? And that's what matters. And if a guy consistently does it in the playoffs, Sammy Bennett did it. He was 19 with the Calgary Flames. He was their best player in that playoff run. Whatever, the first round with Bob Hartley as a coach. Because it takes a different breed of a person. You're wired differently. Those guys are wired differently. They live for that moment. You saw him yesterday. That shift was unbelievable. He hits a guy, hits the other guy. He's just playing hockey. And then he jumps in the hole. Then he goes in that breakaway. Then he's like, "Oh, I got hands. I grew up with McDavid. He thinks he's as good as McDavid. I can tell you that for a fact. He thinks he's as good as McDavid. You need that. And then, he puts that goal in and he's like, "All right, yeah." You see, like, that's what I'm trying to say. But we keep talking about Mitch, the whole world, not us. But, oh, Mitch Marner, this and this much. And I mean, if you're going to give Mitch Marner 14 million, I'm certainly going to give Sam Bennett 10 million. Absolutely. Any day of the week, twice on Sunday. That's my point.
So the thing with Marner, though, is that getting out of Toronto will help him. It just will.
For sure.
And I think that part of the appeal, if he were to land with Vegas, is that he's kind of like he'll be the highest paid guy, but he would not be like their top guy. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone are still going to be there, right?
Yeah.
You have like half of their defense is exceptional, and I guess no Pietrangelo would be a hit to that, but you are talking about like he would not have to go in and be like the savior, and I think that would be part of the problem that I would have with him going to some of these other teams. Somebody
He'd
in
have to
chat
be
mentioned the
the
Kings.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody mentioned the Kings, and it would be like, okay, he's gonna walk in there and he would have to be the man, because as great as they are defensively, Kopitar and Doughty, they're looking to kind of turn it over, and you could see where Marner going in there is the pressure is going to be on him to elevate both
I
Kempe
mean,
and Fiala. Like
Kempe led them in
those,
scoring with like 75 points, and you're bringing in Marner as a
yeah,
100-point guy. Like,
right. Like he's going to have to go in there and absolutely blow up, and he could. Like that could be exactly what they need. But I'm with Eric in that it's a concern that his postseason career is as inconsistent as it has been. I think it's overstated a little bit. I do always have a hard time holding team success against guys, but because Mitch Marner is the free agent. John Tavares is also a free agent. He's going to re-sign in Toronto, and we're all just kind of like, okay, is what it is,
yeah,
right? It's Austin Matthews, Willie Nylander, like. There was the core four there, and Mitch Marner was only 25% of the core four that failed to do more with those other guys, and it feels like Marner is right now the in vogue fall guy for it. So I think I don't know. I've always been a really big Mitch Marner guy while understanding the issues there. I know there's been a lot of talk about Utah throwing a ton of money at him. Um, that makes sense to me. They need somebody else to you put that guy you put that guy on the other side of Clayton Keller, and you have a really really fun and interesting top line. Is it going to be any good in the playoffs? I don't know, man. I
I,
don't know. But getting to the playoffs is where they want to be, and that's a big consideration for Marner. Like, yeah, Chicago and San Jose can throw an absolute boatload of cash at him. Columbus can throw an insane amount of money at that guy. Is he going to win though?
you're golfing in mid-April, yeah.
Exactly. Are you comfortable with that? And I think San Jose's headed in the right direction. I think Chicago, I'm worried that Chicago was stalled out a little bit in their rebuild. And Columbus, I think, is riding high off of a very big smoke and mirrors season that a lot is going to have to change in order for me to believe that they're really truly on the ascent. But they have so much money that I think it would be fine. Like you could take that chance. Go
Yeah.
and do it, it's one of those strange places that players have when they've been there, they've loved, but they've had
Wouldn't
a
be the
talent
first time they
retention
pushed their
problem.
chips in either.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Johnny Gaudreau shocked everybody when he signed there.
Yep.
Oh, Columbus. Yeah, I know. I told you it's one of my sleep. I don't know why. I've always loved it. One of my sleeper towns, sleeper places in the NHL. It's I love that place. I love that rink. I don't know. I just love it. But you're 100% right on Marner. Utah's giving him 14. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna happen. Now, does he want to go there? I don't know. I don't know. But someone's giving him 14, and Utah is one of them.
I do. Yeah, I wanted to touch on your conversation with Sam Bennett because, yes, look, Sam Bennett, playoff performer, deserves that credit, absolutely. But be careful of the cup tax trap. I would warn off of that because Sam Bennett, if he signs a $10 million deal, the incredible postseason he's having doesn't become an overperformance. It becomes the expectation. And if he
Yep.
provides anything less for that type of a contract, it ends up being a disappointment. Now, maybe he does. Like, obviously, I can't see the future. Maybe he signs somewhere, whether it's in Florida or elsewhere, and he's a point per game guy for the next 4 years of the playoffs, and everyone is saying that contract is worth every penny. But if he falls off that pace even a little bit, people are going to look at that contract and go, wow, you overpaid for a guy because he had a couple of great cup runs.
I'm going to say something right there, and you're right. And I think when you're doing it, you have to have that expectation because 82 games to play that way, no human being can do that. There's no way. I'm just telling you right now.
Of
But
course.
when
Yeah.
he plays that way, it's because he knows that what's at stake, and he won last year. So it's not like he's sitting on his bacon because he won. That he's like, no, he wants another one, and he's always been that way. So when you're doing a deal like that, absolutely. Do you think he's your main guy? No, then you're making a mistake. But if you're doing it because you know you're going to win and he's going to make your other guys in your lineup win, flip the coin. Talking Avalanche here on about Bennett. Okay, let's take Marty Natchez. Okay, two separate players, two different players. I don't want people to think I'm comparing the two. It's not what I'm saying. But you know what we always say? Oh, Marty, like whatever he wants, 8.5, 9, 9. He's probably asking for 10, right? So we're in the same ballpark here, number wise. But you got a reputation of a guy that plays in the spring, and he's going to win the Conn Smythe. After that goal yesterday, how does he not win the Conn Smythe? He's winning the Conn Smythe. Okay, move on. And you're talking about a guy like Carolina, yeah, Marty. There's a reason they got rid of him, and then everyone here in Avs Nation is questioning Marty's playoff performance again, right? So, well, you're gonna give him the 10 million, 9.5 million, whatever it is, right? If you're the Avs or somebody else, but you're not going to give it to Sam Bennett, right? So it's like it's the flip side of things. Oh, but you're going to get 90 points out of Marty Gray, but then when the playoff comes, you get nothing. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Marty. I'm saying the trajectory. That's kind of what's been happening. But we won't give it to Sam Bennett, even though we know he's going to give you the silver thing, and he's going to be one of your main guys for the silver thing. But I understand. I'm not, and I agree. That's why the dilemma is I get it.
Hey,
But
look,
when you're flipping it that way, it's like, come on, man. Like, really?
just
Someone's
because
going
you
to give it to
didn't
him.
spend stupid money doesn't mean you can't spend stupid money elsewhere in the NHL. I've learned that rule very, very quickly.
Yeah, but it's not stupid when the guy is a freaking consistently one of the best players on wherever he
Yeah,
goes in the playoffs.
no money's stupid until it's stupid, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. True.
you're muted.
Bennett is the ultimate like walk guy blowing up, right? Like a third of his career postseason goals have come this year, which he's been a good postseason player in the past, but this year he's an elite one. And Rudo, you're 100% right when you say, "Oh, that you give him $10 million. This is no longer the wow that Sam Bennett had one crazy year. This is
Yeah.
what we want from Sam Bennett."
Yep.
It's not, is if he goes back to the previous two postseason seasons, just numbers wise, he had 15 points in 20 games and 14 points in 19 games. That's fine. You have no issues with that. He's doing his thing. He scored 5 and 7 goals respectively in those years. 12 goals across 2 seasons in cup runs.
Yep.
Like, great. He's doing great. He
Perfectly
has 14
solid guy.
goals in
Yep.
20 games. He has 14 goals in 20 games. He's pushing like all-time great goal-scoring postseason territory right now. If this continues to go any kind of way, like this is the ultimate. Like I've before they signed Brock Nelson, I was saying, hey, find a way, give him $9 million, I don't care, and I would have been fine with it. But you do have to look at it and say, this is not going to be a thing moving forward. He's going to be who he's going to be. Right now, it's just an all-time. This is the career heater for him. You want to be careful with it. And I would also say, Eric, to your point, you've compared him to Claude Lemieux. It's a lot easier to trade Matt Sundin in the past when you have Peter Forsberg and Joe Sakic hanging around. That is a really important consideration with Sundin. That Lemieux was a guy they absolutely needed, and one of the great like rises in the playoffs type of guy. He was great. If Sam Bennett is going to be that, great. But Claude Lemieux was also a really, really, really productive and good regular season player. Sam Bennett just hit 50 points for the first time in his career. So, and when the Avs traded for Lemieux, he was holding out with Jersey coming off a 40-goal season. Like, Claude Lemieux had some bona fides as like this guy is really, really, really good. And Sam Bennett has had an all-time heater of a playoff right now. So you always have to be careful with the hot playoff guy. And Marner is like the opposite end of that, where I mean, look at he had 13 points in 13 games, and people want to crucify him.
I mean,
And by the
I will
way,
say,
chat's comments right there, like right now, like the last 7, 8, 9 posts are all awesome. I agree with all of them.
I
They're
was
all
going to
awesome.
say,
I mean,
even if Bennett's play falls off, all right, he runs into the goalies the way Blues fans think Kadri runs into goalies. So
Yeah, I would.
love it.
Personally, I would bet on Sam Bennett being this guy moving forward, like a really high impact, high end kind of guy. Playoffs and regular season, I think that he's just coming into his own. He's also getting better ice than he's ever gotten, playing with better teammates than he ever has. So if somebody's going to pay him, they're not going to put him on their third line. They're going to pay him and play him with the best that they have. He's going to be surrounded with some guys, and I think that I'm a big believer in Sam Bennett, but I understand this is what you're worried about.
But back
Yeah.
then it was the makeup, the Quebec, the franchise, the Avalanche, the makeup. It
Yeah.
was the makeup. Their makeup was wrong. Their recipe was wrong. They had some ingredient. Forsberg had never played a game in the National Hockey League. All you knew from him was Europe. You didn't know. I mean, again, we've seen guys come over. They can't play in the National Hockey League, and they had to change the makeup. And that trade was not Claude Lemieux. It was at the time, if you guys remember, Wendell Clark. You know what I mean? You're talking about makeup. Clark, he was a tough guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like a performer, a playoff guy. With Sylvain Lefebvre, ironically, assistant coach with the Florida Panthers and a first round pick. It was one of those things, you know what I mean? But you're right. When you have that in the back, you have Sakic, you have Forsberg, makes it easier, you know what I mean? But sometimes it's like it's the makeup you're trying to change. It's the culture, the makeup, the when the puck drops, are you ready to go win? And ultimately, Clarkey ended up, which I love. I played with Clarkey a little bit in Toronto. Man, what a warrior! But then he ended up holding out, and Pepe was holding out, and that was his chance. And my dad, like I told you, loved the Montreal Canadiens back then, the dynasty, the influence of the Montreal Canadiens, and you know, first chance he got was Claude. I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So when after Claude, then they brought the blood in of the Keens and Waugh and blood, and which ultimately we talked about it. Helped Joe Sakic, become a better player, worry about, being himself and not, sometimes handle some captain duties or whatever, which, it's not Joe's forte, that kind of stuff. And those guys, Claude thrived. And you're talking about Claude, Keener, and Patty. You're talking about thriving on chaos. Well, here you go. You got those three right there. It's perfect.
I do want to shift gears a little bit to some of the other top free agents, at least in production for this season. And you have to look at the Dallas Stars as they have a significant load here. When you look at Duchesne, Granlund, and Jamie Benn, and then to a lesser extent, Dodonov as well. They have a number of guys on this list that are hitting free agency. It's pretty impossible for me to see them moving on from Ben, but when you look at Duchesne, when you look at Granlund, are these guys you expect to go to other locations and have an impact somewhere, or are these landmines?
We've talked a lot about how we kind of feel about Duchesne as
Yeah,
like a postseason guy. You want to talk about a concern, right? A big concern about. Um, I think I texted Eric a few weeks ago. He has like 3 goals in his last 35 playoff games
37.
or something.
Yeah.
He had 37 playoff games. He had 3 goals. Now, obviously, one of them was a dagger and broke all of our hearts, but let's be real. The Avs should have lost that earlier on the Mason Marchment goal that got called back because of goaltender interference. So, uh, point is, like, Duchesne's going to stay in Dallas. They're going to find a way to make that work. Same is going to be true of Ben. I imagine they're going to do what they can to try and keep Granlund. Dodonov is like that guy had 40 points out of nowhere. 36-year-old, like 20 goals this year. Like their depth is just kind of it gave them everything that they had in the regular season, and then all of them turned into pumpkins come playoff time. You look at
Yeah.
every single one of those guys, and you look at the regular seasons that they had versus the money they were getting paid, and it's like, yeah, how did Dallas not actually do better in the standings than they did? And then you get into the postseason and you look at it, and like Granlund was the only one of those guys that was decent, and that's not a guy with the illustrious track record of postseason success. He hasn't been a very good playoff guy, but you also need to make the playoffs. You need the 82 games to get through aren't irrelevant. And I understand when you're talking about Mitch Marner at $14 million, that guy has to be more than just a regular season player for you. But you need the Dodonovs, the Bens. You need some of these guys to get you through the 82 games of the regular season. You need skill. You need production. You need to be able to win games. You can't just be like, oh, well, here's the guys. Unless you have the Nathan McKinnons who have backpacked a bunch of bad Avalanche depth the last couple of years to postseason, like cozy postseason spots. You need some of these guys, and I think a lot of these guys are landmines. I don't trust many of these guys. Granlund, I think, is a big empty calorie guy. Has been for a long time. I love watching him play. I don't want him on my team. Just my personal no thank you. Matt Duchesne is a no thank you. You go down this list. Brad Marchand, that's a guy that you do want. You look at what's wrong with him and you where he is in his career and the cons there, but all of the pros, you're like, You're not going to bring Brad Marchand in and play him on your top line anymore. That era is over. So some of this is expectations, right? But like a lot of these guys are very worrisome, which is why this UFA class sucks.
I think there's a little bit of balance there. Yes, obviously this year's UFA class is not very good, but a lot of people I think have this imaginary scenario of, oh, this amazing player, the best player ever is in free agency and we got to go get him. If there was a player with no concerns, he wouldn't make it to free agency. He'd be Cale Makar, who the team would just give a blank check to keep forever. Like that's the reality of free agency is for whatever reason, whatever team he's currently on can't keep him or wants to move on from him. So the perfect player in free agency doesn't exist, in my opinion.
Of course. And a lot of these guys that we're going to be talking about getting paid over the next few weeks, like Brock Besser. I've been a Brock Besser guy since 2015. I wouldn't give him $9 million.
Right.
I just wouldn't.
Fair enough.
And that's kind of what you look at, you know, even a guy, he's not going to leave, right? But like Jamie Benn, he had a 49-point year this year.
Yep.
Captain, tough, rugged, like leader in that room, blah, blah, blah. 3 points in 18 games in the playoffs this season. His game collapsed.
He's also making $9.5 million, and that's the end of that deal. I get it. But
he's not going to... Right, but even at $3 million, you play that guy, you need more than 3 points in 18 games if you pay that guy any kind of money. If you're paying him $1 million, sure. But that's just not... I mean, when guys hit the wall, they hit the wall, and it's a very big question as to, is the playoffs just really hard? Is that just how it is? Why did Dallas's depth completely disappear? I mean, that was their number one calling card, and they got sent home in an uncompetitive Western Conference final, and arguably should not have been there in the first place. And that was their greatest strength, and it's what failed them the hardest.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, other than, you know, happy to see it happen. Couldn't happen to a better team, I guess.
Chuck is saying Marian Hossa. By the way, it's probably one of the most underrated players I've ever played with. That guy was unbelievable. Marian Hossa, what a stud. What a pick, Chuck, for you. You're my idol right now. And then people are talking about Paterka. Always remember, when you're not a UFA, you're an RFA, and you hear your name everywhere. There's a reason for that. It's because you're being a little sometimes difficult because you don't have rights, you don't have this, you don't have that, and then you believe you should be given this. And that's where teams are like, well, I'm not giving him this. And that's when it starts. Then you're trying to trade you because you're calling. Everybody made a big deal about the email this year about Chris Kreider, I think from Rangers guys. My Lord. I was working in the office back then with Blackberries, and those emails were coming every day about players. This is nothing new. You know what I mean? This is nothing new. People made something like it was new. So Paterka, his name's out there for sure because he probably wants X amount of dollars, and they're not willing to give him that. And then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, why are you trying to trade him?" And it's like, "Oh, so then the teams aren't stupid. They're like, well, because what he wants 10 million," and then you're like, "Well, well, let me talk to the agent." You know what I mean? And then that's how things happen. But yeah, when your name's out there like that, there's a reason. So
yeah. Real quickly, we are headed into overtime here. Come join us online at thednvr.com where the conversation will continue. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, I mean, Paterka is also a guy that has gone, he's 23 years old, and the last 3 years has gone from 32 to 50 to 68 points. Like, he's gone from being like a first-round pick with promise and has been on a straight-up trajectory for years now. I mean, even before he got to the NHL, he was tearing up the AHL.
Yep.
And, like, you can understand, hey, that's why that guy is asking for that money. But, again, there are pockmarks. He's one of the worst defensive wings in the NHL. He's awful defensively. He gives a ton away. And when you're excited about what a guy can do offensively, that's great. It's what you need. You have to be careful because you're going to end up a team missing the playoffs as that's one of your 3 best players. So you have to be careful with those guys.
Yeah. And I always go and I always tell people, no better than Anaheim the last couple years. Not bagging on any of the players, but a lot of guys got the 7-8 year deals, right? Boom, boom, out of their entry level. And then all of a sudden, who is it that didn't get one? Trevor Zegras, right? Then it becomes a mess because then he's like, well, how come I'm not getting the 8 year deal? No, we'll give you a 2 year, we'll give you a bridge deal. Why? Because there's puck marks. You just said it. That's why. You know what I mean? You have possession of that player. You're with him every day, and you have doubts, and that's why you're not giving him an 8 year deal. So Paterka, maybe that's why they're not giving him the whatever it is, and his trajectory is right there, and he feels he's a 100-point guy, whatever it is that he is, that he thinks he is, and then you value him in a different way, and you think that maybe that was a different kind of season, but also you want him to perform at a certain level all over the ice, and so I mean. Bo Byron, same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, there's a reason he didn't
Really
get
good
8
example.
million or 8 year deal, right? For
Yep.
Avs Nation, Oh, I can't because of contracts. No, sure, but you want to show me, can you do it? And then last year, was it Kale that was out? Then you're like, oh, he's a number one. Then you're like, he's not really a number one, right? And that's when they're probably saying, okay, we can't. He's got an ARB case at some point. Then it's this. We're gonna have trouble. Let's just get rid. Let's just make a trade for him, and that's what they did.
Well, and then
Uh,
Buffalo's looking to move on from the guy for a reason. They've
Yeah,
missed the
there's always a
postseason
reason.
for like 15 years, and there's a 23-year-old defenseman that is coming off a career year that they're like, we think we can move on from this guy. Why is that?
Yeah.
I said this in our Discord, I think it was, but 18 months later, the winner of the Middlestad Byram trade is nobody.
It's like
Exactly.
Casey Middlestat because he has at least a contract, and
I guess somewhere to play. Yeah.
yeah, he doesn't care.
And yes,
He's whatever.
and then I'll give a plug to Schneekloth again because I do believe he needs a shot as an assistant coach somewhere. I think he's at that stage now. So yeah, great question, Joby. I do believe, is it with the Avs? I don't know, but I do believe that I would give him a shot if I was somebody.
I'd give him time.
He's the feel good story. I mean, he's been a Colorado Eagle lifer, basically, from player to coach at
No, he
at
needs
multiple levels.
time. He needs time in the NHL as an assistant coach. He needs time, and then maybe you go back. I don't know, whenever his shot will be, but he needs time now to feel the NHL. Because he's never been there. We talked about that.
All right, we are wrapping up today's show. A little bit of a spoiler for something we might talk about on tomorrow's show. 7 of the 10 top UFAs headed towards the free agency have some sort of clause on their previous contract. So, I know you wanted to get into that. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Bunch of other stuff to get into as well over the next week or so. We'll probably talk about the RFA class a little bit. We'll see. A lot of those probably end up getting signed, but we'll dive into it. Still plenty of stuff to talk about this offseason, and before you know it, it'll be draft and free agency. So we appreciate everyone hanging out. We are out of here for the day. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, and we will see you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.